You know, the life story of Persian poets, for the most part, is very obscure, it's very unclear, and part of it has to do with the culture itself. Um, it is true, someone like Sa'di or Hafez or even Baba Tahir, and many of them, Nizami, Ganjavi, uh, sometimes even Attar, they would mention their own names in their own poems, you know. But for the most part, talking about yourself, you know, whether you are a poet or just a common person, it's usually not done. And even when sometimes we gather, when someone talks about themselves a little too much, um, it's not something that people enjoy. You know, it kind of leaves a very bad taste in your mouth, and you don't really want to listen to this person. Um, so, someone like Hallaj, the great Sufi, or someone like Abu Sa'id Abu Khair, they would never use the word I, like I said this or I said that. They would always say we. And so no one really knows who their teachers were for the most part, what exactly they did. And you just have to kind of, their life is like this huge puzzle, and you have to do the best you can with some of the poems that have, remained, and some of the stories that have been floating around. But your question has to do with love, pain, separation. And I think the best poem, and there are lots of great poems that are out there. I don't know if this is I think this is by Sa'di. ترسم که اشک در غم ما پرده در شود و این راز سر به مهر به عالم سمر شود. خواهم شدن به میکده گریان و دادخواه از دست غم مگر آنجا. I forget that. ترسم که اشک در غم ما پرده در شود. Because Sa'di or Hafez, because these are Sufi poets, and one of the things about Middle Eastern, or maybe at least Persian Sufis, or maybe just Sufis in general, I don't really have much knowledge of Sufis in general. If you're on a quest, and if you love that quest, in other words, if you're a moth and you're questing to be in union with the flame, as long as you have not reached the flame, and depending on how great and how intense your love for the flame is, if your love for the flame, the union with the flame, is really, really intense and powerful, it occupies a good amount of space inside you. Now, which means that as long as you haven't reached your destination, and because of your great love, your passion for it, it's very difficult to forget that you are on this quest. And because you're constantly remembering that this is what you want to do, but you can't reach it and you don't know how to reach it, you have no choice but to have this great longing, this longing caused by separation. You want to get there, but you're not there. So whenever you love something and you're not in union with the thing that you love, it means that there is a gap, a space, that there is the place you want to be, but you're over here. You can only see so far ahead of you, so much. Then you get to a place where everything gets kind of foggy, you become blind. And at that point, there's a great amount of confusion, great amount of doubt. You love, but you also hate. You are joyous, but there's a great amount of sorrow. There is comfort, but there is also a huge amount of pain and sorrow. So Sadi says, this journey has caused me a great amount of sorrow. But the world is a stranger to me. My family is a stranger to me. My kids are a stranger to me. If I was to show them my tears, they would ask me, "So Dad, what's going on with you? Why are you crying?" And then I will be forced to tell them what lives inside me. But I can't tell my story to these strangers, even though they're my family. And so he says, I'm very, very fearful of being broken in such a way that my tears begin to flow down my cheeks, because then I will be exposed. That this secret that I've held within myself for such a long time will come out and everyone will see them. Or this other poem by Hafez, Yusuf gum gashte baz ayad bikan an gham makhor, kulbe ahzan shavad ruzi gulistan gham makhor, vin sar shuride baz ayad be saman gham makhor. That your life was once comfortable, and it was because everything about your life was organized. You had proper drawers or containers for every part of your life. Metaphorically, that's Joseph in the Old Testament. But there was one drawer you really, really, really liked and you were attached to. That's your Joseph. That's your, you're Jacob, the father. Joseph is the thing you're really attached to. And in Sufism, Joseph is this thing that all of us are looking for, this beauty, this flame. Jacob is the moth. Joseph is the flame. You want union with something. You want understanding of some sort about something. It's this mystery, this quest we're all on. We just don't know what we're looking for. But we journey towards whatever, nevertheless. And what does it mean to be Jacob? Well, you have lost your son, the most precious thing, the most valuable thing in your life. You thought it was your degree. You come to realize, no, I have all these degrees, but for some strange reason, they don't mean anything. You buy a car. No, I don't think it was the car either. You buy a house. No, I don't think it was the house either. You get married. No, I don't think it was marriage either. You have children. No, I don't think it was children either. What the hell is it am I looking for? I keep doing all these things, thinking that they'll complete me. but they're so short-lived. And so when the kids go to sleep, when your wife or husband go to sleep, you kind of just find a dark little corner for yourself and you just cry. Because it seems like everything you touch disappoints you. And you cry so much, like Jacob in the Old Testament, they just go blind. And the symbolism of being blind is that, as long as you can see, you covet, you desire, you pursue, you're ambitious, you have goals, you have reasons to live. There are things out there that other people have and you want. You want to have your own house, you want a companion, you want children, you want this outfit. And it's not just about, not having your sight. You may be blind, but you may realize that you have a great voice and you can hear your own voice and you like it. It's like none of your senses work anymore. Your ears don't hear, your nose don't smell anything, your tongue can't taste anything. It's like nothing in this world gives you any satisfaction, any pleasure. And so like Jacob, you've cried so much you've lost your sight. Your kids try to bring you some joy, but there is no joy to be had. You're looking for Joseph. You're looking for something that completes you. When you go home and you, for example, watch a clip of Jordan Peterson or Sadhguru, Eckhart Tolle, or read a book, read the Bible, it doesn't matter what it is that you and I do. We want to be touched by something. And you may have a moment of inspiration, a moment of completion, but it vanishes so quickly. You say, I was touched by something, but then it just went away. And you don't even have the language to express it. So your husband or your wife comes and asks, or your kids ask, or you go to the class when you want to talk about it. Language fails you. And, you have all this feeling and there is no outlet. There's a great amount of pain. And you tried initially to kind of explain yourself to people out there. And initially it was good. When you could, you would mumble a few things and other people would say yes. But then you come to realize that every time you try to say something about how you're feeling within, words don't come out right. Then you realize everybody was just faking it. How could people understand you when you yourself don't understand you? How could people understand your expression when you come to realize your expressions have been nothing but a bundle of confusion, just random noise? And then you realize how alone you really are. And depending on whether or not, there are forces out there that can distract you, make you forget. If your entire life has revolved around Joseph, it's very difficult to forget. You could be distracted for a minute or two, but for the most part, Joseph is never going to leave you. And so what Hafez says, human beings have lost their Joseph. They do all sorts of things to beautify their life, but to no avail. And so after a while, everybody becomes blind. Everybody's confused. Everybody's angry and frustrated and anxious. And his hopeful message is, keep looking for the Joseph within. Eventually you will find it. And once you find it, your pain will go away. Now, he doesn't give us a timetable. He doesn't say like 5 years from now, after much crying, after much confusion, after much anger, July 2027, the veils will drop. And it's always something that will take place in the future. گر دو روزی چرخ گردون بر مراد ما نرفت دائما یکسان نماند دور گردون غم مخور. That if the days just pass by without ever benefiting you, don't worry. There will come a day where you will see sunrise and everything you touch will turn into gold. Or you have this thing by Attar, مرده ای امیرم بر روی خاک زنده گردان جانم ای جان بخش پاک. You go out there and you see things and you hear things and you smell things and you taste things. And then desires begin to appear. And the moment you have a desire, if you're ambitious enough, if the desire is intense enough, if the desire turns into a want, and if the want turns into a need, then you begin this journey to fulfill, this desire that's now a need. And then what happens with some experience, some reflection, some self-examination, you are able to see the outcome of every pursuit. That you come up with a great question, you want to ask it. Then you say, what for? You want to respond to a great question. Then you say, what for? Your companion says, let's go out to dinner. They have good food. You say, my tongue has been there. I have tasted enough good food to realize it turns into poop, and I come back home exhausted, having wasted money. Let's just stay home. Well, what do you want to do? Really, I want to be left alone. I've been there. I've done that. I've come to realize at the end of every sunrise is a sunset. مرده ای میروم بر روی خاک. I'm alive. I go from here to there. I want to feel something, but I can't. I want to have desire for something, but I can't. It's too big of a cross to carry to know the outcome, that everything in the end will have zero value. And if that's the case, do anything for what? Murdeyam, I'm but a corpse. I walk around. There is not an ounce of passion inside me. زنده گردان جانم ای جان بخش پاک. I don't want to come to life by driving a Tesla. I don't want to come to life by going out on a date. I don't want to come to life by having good food. I don't want to come to life by some cheap distraction. Bring me to life in a way that life does not diminish. That's one of the things about pleasure, especially something that gives you intense pleasure. You don't want it to end. You want it to be continuous. It's it's a very subtle message that our own life experiences give us, but I think it's very difficult to pay attention to them. You're full, but the fries taste so good, you keep eating them. Because the pleasure brings you to life and keeps you alive. You know, and of course, after you have overeaten, you hate yourself for having, eaten so much. Uh, but the best poem, having, I think, given you some very brief samples, the best poem is the very first few lines of Masnavi, Book 1. بشنو از نی چون حکایت می کند و از جدایی ها شکایت می کند که از نیستان تا مرا ببریده اند در نفیرم مرد و زن نالیده اند سینه خواهم شرح از فراق تا بگویم شرح درد اشتیاق من به هر جمعیتی نالان شدم جفت خوشحالان و بدحالان شدم هر کسی از ظن خود شد یار من از درون من نجست اسرار من آتش است این بانگ نای و نیست باد هر که این آتش ندارد نیست باد. So there is this reed flute. And when you hear the reed, play, it has such a deep, haunting sound. It just kind of just goes inside you. It's really quite sorrowful. And Rumi says there's a reason why the reed is so sad. It once lived in paradise. It once lived in the world of ideas. It once lived in the Garden of Eden. We went to, the kids were invited to a birthday party. So we took them to, it was near Sausalito. And as we were leaving, I was standing next to this father. He was Indian. I told him, I was in your country many, many years ago. He said, which country? England or India? I said, I was in India. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Persia, Iran. And all of a sudden, his demeanor changed. He said, when I was in college, I had a girlfriend. I was with her for 6 years. I have never loved anyone the way I loved this woman. And we had to break up because her parents didn't want her to marry a non-Persian. I had just met the guy. And hearing the word Persia triggers something inside him. He goes back in time and he remembers how it felt, where his body, his mind, and his emotions or soul, they lived together in such harmony with this other woman. It was such a paradise. And he said, don't get me wrong, I love my wife, but I just can't love her the way I loved. And that's the reed flute, that it is sad because despite, the reed living a relatively comfortable life, having no real needs, really, it lives in a place, in a land that doesn't belong to him, or he doesn't belong to this land, که از نیستان تا مرا ببریده اند در نفیرم مرد و زن نالیده اند. Look at all human beings. They are like reed flutes, whatever it is that they do. It's a sad and desperate attempt to find union with something. سینه خواهم شرح از فراق. That if you're aware that something about you is missing, and you don't know what it is, it's the Joseph, The more you feel that, the more you reflect on it, the more you experience it, it's such a beautiful imagery he, puts his language, that you have this heart. This heart feels this separation from whatever it is that you and I feel separated from, And the more you feel, the more your heart gets broken. It shatters into 1,001 pieces. And you're constantly bleeding. Now, when you're in pain, what happens? Well, you say, ouch, someone please help, someone please listen, someone please understand. And this reed flute says, I have sang all these songs. I have sat. من به هر جمعیتی نالان شدم جفت خوشحالان و بدحالان شدم. I have taken my pain and expressed them to my friends, to my parents, to my siblings, to my spouse, to my teachers, to books, to the church, to the mountains, to the trees, to the animals, to those who are wise, to those who are stupid or unwise. سینه خواهم شرح از فراق تا بگویم شرح درد اشتیاق. All the hearts that I find, they are intact. They enjoy driving fancy cars. They enjoy buying beautiful houses. They enjoy going out to have fancy food. They enjoy watching movies. They enjoy having conversations. I find no heart that is shattered, broken enough in the right way where I can have a real conversation. And alas, I've come to realize every time I have a conversation with anyone, they nod their head as if they can really understand me, but they don't. No one understands me. And so when you speak about pain, pain can only be understood by someone who has gone through the same pain. But you have to make sure that the humility, the passivity, the receptiveness that pain creates is not forgotten. The tragedy of this first set of poems in this first book is that it ends really, really badly. Where he says, I forget the Persian, but I have spoken to a lot of people, but I have found them to be raw. I have found them to be uncooked. It's not worth speaking to people who are raw and uncooked and unseasoned. پس سخن کوتاه باید و سلام. That it's best to keep my speech very short and just walk away. If you get broken by someone like Socrates, for example, Let's say you have Aristotle, you have Plato, and you have Diogenes. All three have been broken by Socrates. And they have been the student of Socrates since they were 19 or 18. And they've been around Socrates for 10 years. Because they've been broken by Socrates, when they go out together, they talk about how they have been broken by Socrates. And whatever it is that they express, it comes from the brokenness that was created by Socrates. It is so important to have the right friendships. If you are Jacob and you have lost something within, at least you feel that you're living in a strange place and you're a foreigner or an immigrant, find other Jacobs. It's very difficult to go through pain alone, because after a while, when it's too much isolation, you get really, really depressed. And then it's very difficult to kind of continue with the journey. You need to find friends who've been broken in the same way, relatively speaking, at least by the same person. And no one has ridiculous or childish, ambitions that people can kind of break bread by sharing the pain and the isolation and the depression and the anxiety, the frustration, the sort of darkness that engulfs them. There is this another poem. سینه مالا مال درد است ای دریغا مرهمی دل ز تنهایی به جان آمد خدا را همدمی. Your heart was designed or created to be broken. And once your heart gets broken, it becomes a home to grief and pain. سینه مالا مال درد است ای دریغا مرهمی. That when my heart gets broken, is there anything out there that can put it back together? دل ز تنهایی به جان آمد خدا را همدمی. And in pain, you're always alone. Um, because Iran it still is, in many ways, a very religious country. Religious in the sense that you walk the streets, you see mosques, you see people talking about religion. You see women dressed a certain way. You see men really not looking at women at all. There is like this separation. This unspoken respect. Maybe deep down, as Freud would say, they have this id that's very aggressive that wants to come out and do A, B, C, D, but people had been socialized in a civilized way, so men would look the other way most often. From first grade, you had to read Arabic, you had to learn passages from the Quran, you had to memorize poems by Hafez, by Sa'di, by Ferdowsi. First grade, you had to go in front of the classroom and then recite by heart. Then the only fun we had was to have people come over the house and we would talk. I mean, they would talk, we would listen. We were kids. Religion, philosophy, politics. You would see your parents pray. You would go to the mosque. At the end, you would see people pray. During Ramadan, the fasting month, you would go there and they would bring these big platters and like 10 people would sit around this huge plate and eat with their hands. So religion was inside you and outside of you. When we met Hussein, he was the cause of our brokenness. He gave us a taste of something. I'm not sure what it was. But he made physical life small. And he made reflective life big. Physical life became less of a value. Reflective life became a huge value, you know. And so we pursued that. We read books. We fasted. We did all sorts of things. When the gatherings would end, for example, it's a Wednesday night or a Saturday or a Friday night, we go there at 6 or 5. We stay there till like 12 or 1. And we're like full with inspiration, with ideas, with living in the moment, you know, if you will. And then you would drive home. And you couldn't go to sleep. Because inside your body was this force that was just running wild. But because we had the religious language, you would, at 1 o'clock, for example, you would go home, you're exhausted, but something about you says, like, sit quietly. You want to pray, pray. You want to cry, cry. But sit. And then because of the books that you read, because of the lives of various Sufis, for example, that you're exposed to, you say, I'm not going to give my flesh too much comfort. So you sleep for only 2 hours, you know. And so your brokenness, your pain began to have meaning and purpose. And I say this because the last couple of words in the poem, Sine mala mal dar daste dariqa marhami, that your heart was created to be broken and to house pain. Dil ze tanhayi be jan amad. This sense of isolation, this loneliness, this despair, so huge, so intense. Khudaya, Khuda ra hamdami. It seems that the only entity I can call a companion is God. You know. So there is no escaping. You know, if something about you has shattered because you're questing, you're looking for something. And don't forget Charles Darwin in the sense that if you continue with whatever it is that you're looking for, at the very beginning of your quest, your skin is thin. It gets bruised and it gets bloodied all the time. As you continue with the journey and you become more proficient, you're able to endure. And what seems painful now will not be as painful 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or maybe 2 weeks from now if you're lucky. All this therapy and psychology, it's good, but it's good in some ways, but it's extremely incomplete. But it also depends on what it is that you're looking for and what it is that you want to do.